I love books, yes I do, I love books. How about you? Okay, maybe you don't like books. If you don't like books and you don't like reading, then don't watch. Go find something else. I kind of want to change my YouTube name to like Books and Beauty or something silly, but I'm sure it's already taken. Don't go and take my suggestion. I probably won't ever change. Anyhow, so this is a review on a couple books that I read. Or didn't read. I'm going to do 2 books in this one, and then I'll do another book review for Water for Elephants. So this is one of the books I just finished, An Object of Beauty by Steve Martin. I really liked this up until the end, and I don't want to spoil it in case you go read it, but if you liked Shop Girl, you really might like this. I only saw the film, I never read the book, but I do think that Steve Martin is a gifted writer. I'm going to take my watch off, otherwise it's going to get lipstick on it from my hand. Oh, too late. It is told from the perspective of Daniel Franks, and he is a young gentleman who went to college with this girl named Lacey Yeager, and it kind of hints that he has a crush on her through the narration, but he is kind of like the objective storyteller. And Lacey Yeager is in the art world. She is, you know, working at different galleries and working with different pictures, buying and selling and delivering them to collectors. I liked that you got a lot of history on paintings. A lot of these I was not familiar with. I have a very limited knowledge of art, mostly just like famous works and the most famous painters. So that was kind of cool. It had a lot of details that were obviously hard researched by Steve Martin. And the writing is just really brilliant. Like, I love the way he writes. He starts off, he says, "I'm tired, so very tired of thinking about Lacey Yeager, yet I worry that unless I write her story down and see it bound and tidy on my bookshelf, I will be unable to ever write about anything else. My last name is Franks. Once in college, Lacey grabbed my wallet and read my driver's license aloud, discovering that my forenames are Daniel Chester French, after the sculptor who created the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. I'm from Stockbridge, Massachusetts, where Daniel Chester French lived and worked, and my parents, being Americans, didn't realize that the name Daniel Chester French Franks read funny. Lacey told me she was related to the arts by blood, too, but declined to tell me the full story, saying, 'Too long, later I'll tell you, French fries. We were 20. So, I don't know, I really enjoyed this. I felt like I got to know Lacey's character very well. I got a decent feel for the narrator. You get to hear about all her exploits. I really can't say anything negative about it, except that it is a little dry at times because it is art-oriented. So if you don't have some appreciation for the arts, and you're used to like really fast-moving stories, this is probably not for you. But it spans from the time that they're 20 all the way until I think she's 35, dipping back and forth into her life and where she's at and kind of what she does to get ahead. She reminds me of a cross between Charlotte and Samantha from Sex and the City, like if you rolled them into one, because she has kind of that like smart side, but she also kind of has a devious side like Samantha. Not that Samantha's not smart, but you know, kind of a nerdy, studious side versus the I'll do anything to get ahead and use my sexuality side. But yeah, I liked how the story was told. I liked that there was some suspense in it. Like early on there's a conflict where she loses her job and you don't exactly know what happened, and then it goes on and on and on and on. You don't find out until she's at the very end of the book what she did to get fired, and so that was kind of interesting. There was a hint at it, but you never knew for sure if she'd done something totally illegal or what was going on. It does talk about some illegal goings on in the art world. I really don't know what else to say about it. It was well written, it was interesting, but the ending kind of sucked. It was one of those endings where it was just like, and then it was over. And there was no conclusion, there was no real wrapping it up, there was no idea of what the future was going to be. It was just like, it ended on any other day in the life of. And so that was frustrating to me. And I don't really get what you're supposed to walk away with. It's called An Object of Beauty. A lot of times the title has to do immensely with the book. Other than painting being the object of beauty, I guess, I don't really think that Lacey was supposed to be seen as like this wonderful, beautiful creature that everybody was falling all over. There was a man in her life that was really interested in her, and she kind of led him on and toyed with him and didn't really treat him so well, I guess. She kind of used him. So this is more of a summary than a review, but I think it's worth reading, but only if you're okay with like not having a conclusive happy ending. If I knew ahead of time going into it, I wouldn't have read it, I don't think. It's just not my cup of tea, but still well written. Next book. I was really excited about this. I think I saw it in a Reader's Digest or magazine recommendation somewhere, or it might have been one of those ones on Amazon where it says, if you like this, you might like that. So this was Tinkers. This was a Pulitzer Prize winner. It sounded like something I would really enjoy because of things I've had to deal with recently, with loss and grief. And so I think I read this to you before, but it says, as an old man lies dying, as time collapses into memory, he travels deep into his past, where he's reunited with his father and relives the wonder and pain of his impoverished New England youth. At once heartbreaking and life-affirming, Tinkers is an elegant narration on love, loss, and the fierce beauty of nature. I think it's elegant collaboration, but elegant narration works too. It's underneath the sticker. I didn't really care for this at all. I stopped reading it. I didn't finish it, so I didn't want to waste my time. It starts off talking about George Washington Crosby and how he began to hallucinate before he died. And it talks a little bit about his life and what's going on. And some of it's interesting, but it was just really, like, I'd find myself reading it and I'm like, ugh, you know, it was just really wordy and not very exciting, and I didn't relate to the characters. And then it goes back and forth between him and his father. I think his name was Howard. I don't remember his dad's name. Howard, yes, Howard. And it would get exciting where you were like, oh wow, Howard's life is interesting, or, you know, the other guy, George, George's life is interesting, like this is a neat thing, and then it would just like skip to the next guy and wouldn't ever tell you anything else, and it just kept going back and forth and back and forth. And I think there's chapters in this, but like I kept reading and reading and going like, what's the next section, or is the writing style going to change? And I felt like I was reading forever. Yeah, 70 pages till chapter 2. So they're not really chapters, they're more like parts, because it's only a 200-page book. But I couldn't get into it. It was kind of like Howard did this, then George did that, and then Howard did this, and George did that. And George is dying, and Howard's obviously already dead, but it didn't really do justice to the relationship between them. And I don't know, maybe this is just for people who are into heavier reading, but for me, I could not get into it. So there's my crappy review of Paul Harding's Tinkers. Sorry, Paul Harding, I was not into this. Yeah, if you've tried this book, let me know. I don't think a whole lot of people have heard of it, even though it won a Pulitzer. Maybe I'm wrong. I think one of my main complaints was that there wasn't any real humor in this. So it wasn't really funny. There weren't really any female characters that it talked about, at least as far as I got. And like I said, you didn't really hear much about the relationship between them. So it was like this isolated man and his isolated son, and telling the two separate stories back and forth. And it was, I don't know, like maybe for a different generation of people this would be applicable. Like it would make more sense to them if you're a 60 or 70-year-old person reading this, but for me, I just did not find anything that I could grasp onto. It wasn't funny. It wasn't that interesting to me. I think kind of like the daily minutia of life, and I'd rather spend my time reading something else. So I need to start writing stuff down before I talk about books. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'm going to make another video on Water for Elephants.